So the first is on Openshift.com, and some of you might already have an account. And if you do, that's great. And when you visit that, it's going to look like this. And up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see there's a link that says sign up for free. You'll need to put in your email and password. Verify you're not a spam bot. If you are, let me know. I'd like to have a long and deep conversation with you about what life is like as a spam bot. And then click sign up. Out of curiosity, does anybody already have an Openshift account? Awesome, got a few, cool. So the other URL you're going to need to visit then is this. Maybe folks can let me know once you've got your Openshift account set up and on the cloud. Have folks got an Openshift account ready yet? I see some nodding. So once you do, and even if you don't, maybe it will be helpful to open a new browser tab and also have this URL to hand. It's openshift.feedhenry.com. And I'll tell you who FeedHenry are and why that URL is there in the first place in a moment. But we want to visit openshift.feedhenry.com. And from here, you're going to request an invite with a big red button, fill in your details, and you'll be emailed a link to sign up with. So a little bit of prereqs just to get started. Does everybody have those two URLs? All right, excellent. Anyone having any difficulty with the sign-up process?
Should it be possible to the OpenShift feedhenry.com to log in with the OpenShift account?
You do need to first request an invite, which is kind of misleading.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a big red button, request an invite. It'll send you an email link.
The bit.ly link isn't working.
Should be, but I may have gotten that wrong. It's in my slides, I'm sorry to check it.
So it used to work. It's not pretty, but
It's not pretty, that's for sure.
That's PG in case.
Yeah, my handwriting is terrible. That's PG.
PhoneGap Microservices.
Yeah.
It's not a 6, it's not an O, it's a G.
Yep. Not famed for my handwriting.
Oh, lowercase.
Has anybody gotten their account set up yet? I see a couple of people nodding. So when you go to this openshift.feedhenry.com URL, you're going to press the big red button at the start that says request an invite. It'll send you an email to your email address. Once you click that link that's in the email you were sent, because it's got a big invitation code attached, once you click that link, you should be able to log in over here on the right with your Red Hat OpenShift username and password. And once you do that, you'll probably be asked for a little screen with please enter a domain name. You can just make it up, put in your name, put in something that'll probably be unique. If your name is John Smith, you might be out of luck, and press finish. And eventually, you should end up with a screen that looks like this. Is anybody here yet? Fantastic. All right. Is there anybody who needs some help with the setup process? All good? All right. So while people are getting set up, I'm going to come back to this in a moment. But first, I wanted to kind of introduce the session a little bit. So we're going to be talking about supercharging your mobile apps with microservices. So we're really hitting off the buzzwords today, right? Microservices, this latest, hot and greatest technology. I'm going to explain a little bit behind where the hype comes from, why there's a good intersection with the term microservices and all things mobile, why they're a great fit for one another, and then we're actually going to write one as well. Now we're going to write one on a technology called Node.js, which thankfully means we're going to be writing JavaScript on the server side. And for most audiences, when I talk about JavaScript on the server side, I'll get a bunch of people who write Java on a day-to-day basis, and they think JavaScript on the server side, are you mad? But today I'm talking to PhoneGap Day. You guys all write JavaScript already, so I feel like I'm in a good place here. Out of curiosity, how many people have written a bit of Node.js already? Most of you, not all of you. Cool, so that makes my life a lot easier, so that's cool. So I'm almost preaching to the choir here. Now all I have to do is get you guys sold on the idea of microservices. So my name is Cian Clarke. I'm a software engineer at Red Hat. Not Cian, not Cian, not Cyan. Nobody can pronounce my name. And I swear, it's gotten to the point where if I go into Starbucks and they ask for my name, I'll break out in a cold sweat. And I'll just tell them Ken, just Ken, it's fine. So yeah, Cian. And I'm with the Red Hat Mobile division. And out of curiosity, how many people before today knew that Red Hat had a mobile product in the first place? Awesome, nobody. So we've really got our work cut out for us, how are we?
Arcade's awesome.
So yeah, Red Hat Mobile was originally a startup company called FeedHenry that was acquired a little over a year ago, a year and a half ago now. It was an Irish startup that I was a part of, and now it's known as Red Hat Mobile. It's been productized under the Red Hat product suite. And we're going to be using the Red Hat suite to build our application today, but keep in mind that everything I show you in the Red Hat nature of things can be ripped out and put anywhere else. So your Cordova app that we're going to build, and it's going to be a short amount of Cordova work because you're probably all experts already. That can be pulled out, opened up in Xcode, opened up in Android Studio, and built yourselves. It's just a Git repository. Likewise with the Node.js application, you can clone that down and bring it wherever you want. We're not locking you in here. It's just a really convenient way for me to give you guys a little bit of an insight into the mobile offering at Red Hat. And also, just a cool sandbox to build the code in. And by the way, you're free to try and build this code on your own machine if you're adamant you don't want to use this damned product. But I can't support you in your endeavors. So if anybody has any issues throughout the day with the a syntax error or something isn't working for them, I'll try and keep it a little bit interactive. It might be difficult with the bigger group, but we'll see how it goes. So yeah. As I said, I'm Cian Clarke. I do social things. I tweet about mobile. And little known fact, Red Hat employees are actually paid by the number of Twitter followers they have. And I learned a really cool tip earlier. That's not actually true, by the way. I learned a really cool trick earlier by one of the presenters, which is that he tweets out the URL of the slides and the URL of the cheat sheet and stuff. So I'm going to do that after this session, which gives you an extra incentive to follow me. So yeah, feel free to reach out and say hi. So we discussed this already, but for anybody who joined us just a moment ago, there are some prerequisites Step 1, sign up for an Openshift account on openshift.com. Once you've done that, and I swear this is the last time I'll say it, because anybody who's been here early has been listening to me say this over and over. But step 1, sign up for an Openshift account by clicking this red link in the top right, fill out the form, and hey presto, you'll have an Openshift account. You might have one already. Step 2, we're going to visit openshift.feedhenry.com, and there we're going to click the big red button, fill out our details. So we're going to give a company name, full name, email. In that email address, in your inbox, you'll get a link with a special invite code. You'll click that, and last but not least, final step, you'll come back to this page. This bit will be gone, but you will have a login, and you can use your Openshift account to log in. So how many people have gotten to here at this point? Excellent. Okay, cool. So I'm going to move on, and we're going to get coding pretty quickly. I don't have a lot of slides today. In fact, I think I have like 4 or 5. I just wanted to kind of introduce the term first. So microservices, and common misconception. It's just so well done again, right? It's the same damn thing. So a lot of people are kind of down on the term microservices because it's such a hyped buzzword these days. And frankly, I mean, you can call them what you want. You can call them potatoes for all I care. I really don't. The kind of concepts are still a really good practice, a great way to build applications, and there's a lot of really nice intersections with mobile. So first and foremost, how many people have heard of the term before today? And again, plenty of people have. It's everywhere these days, so I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. So what I've done is I've just taken some of the kind of key bullet points that I saw from Martin Fowler's blog post, which is linked down here at the bottom. And by the way, this is what I think probably kickstarted the whole microservices movement, this particular blog post. So I would thoroughly encourage any of you to check this out. But the 3 kind of big take-homes for me, first of all, componentization via services. And really, that's just a fancy way of saying, build things as components. Don't build things as big, heavyweight monoliths with thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of lines of a code base. Instead, break things up to be smaller, modular, and reusable. And to an audience of PhoneGap developers, this probably doesn't seem all that, this seems pretty obvious, right? I mean, plugins are fantastically modular and reusable. And client-side technologies have evolved so much to make modular, reusable code with things like Browserify and Require.js and so on. But think of the days before the JavaScript require statement, when there were 10,000 line JavaScript files on the client side, and there was mayhem, right? I mean, there were pretty dark days in client-side development as well. So there's almost a degree of parallel to be had between the kind of evolution of client-side development and how we've come full circle from building big monoliths, be it in Java or Ruby or ASP or whatever, back to this idea of building small services. Which brings me to my next point, the idea of having smart endpoints with dumb pipes. Now, what does that mean? So the idea here is that the communication layer that your service uses, that your piece of server-side code uses, isn't so important. Be it a REST API, be it going over some sort of message bus between the components, that's not the important part. What's important is what's happening inside in this service. And these services are kind of to be thought of as really just little pieces of logic, domain-specific pieces of logic to achieve one simple task, rather than trying to do everything at once, which is what this model of the monolith used to be. And again, there's a sort of a parallel to mobile here. And it's a little tentative, but bear with me. So think about the Facebook app, right? The Facebook app started out having many, many screens. I mean, really complex navigation. And slowly but surely, they've been forcing us to break smaller components of Facebook out into smaller applications. And they've kind of realized on the client side, a lot of companies, that trying to do everything in one big, massive native app, or indeed one big Cordova app, isn't really feasible. And the idea of Facebook suddenly launching things like Messenger and their photo gallery app and the camera app and so on, it's kind of coming to the client side as well, this idea of micro applications. And so the kind of idea of having many different applications, talking to some piece of server-side code, be it messages or the news feed or whatever the case may be, kind of plays quite nicely to this idea of having small composable services that talk to one another in an intelligent way to deliver a payload back to a mobile application. So why is this so relevant for mobile over every other platform? So there's some kind of unique considerations for mobile compared to something like a web application or a desktop application. And when a mobile application consumes some piece of data on the web via an API, there's a couple of things that are a little different. So if we're looking at a clunky old CRT monitor, which represents the web application, sorry web app developers, we've got a pretty quick release cycle because we deploy our website to some server somewhere, and escaping from the cache, right away we've got our release done. And so this makes our API integrations what we call loosely coupled. That means there's no really strong binding between the API the web application uses and the web application itself. Since we can deploy that code, worst case scenario, we're just waiting for our user's page refresh to reflect the changes. The other thing that a web application has is a performant network connection. So we can make many requests across our cable network at home, and we can, we don't really have to worry about the size of the payload as well. We can ask for big video files and images and so on without really worrying. But when we look at a mobile device that's sitting in our pocket, maybe we're going to be on top of Sundance Mountain on Saturday with very little network connectivity. It's a very different consideration. So we've got a lossy network. Maybe it's Edge, maybe it's 3G. Either way, it's slower than what we've got in this web application. So we've got to think about things like the HTTP overhead, HTTPS handshake, a pretty expensive operation to happen, and things like the size of the payload as well, be it images, or indeed just raw data, big chunks of SOAP data. You know how bulky SOAP payloads can be, and we'll see this a little bit later. We want to be able to compress things like this down to be better suited for mobile APIs. The other big difference is this slower deploy cycle. So our release cycle with an app that's sitting in the public app store could take anywhere up to a week. I mean, with the Google Play Store, it's pretty quick. But if we're waiting for an Apple review right before Christmas, it's going to take forever. So if we've got a critical fix that we need to get out, our API has gone down, somebody's hijacked our domain, we're in real trouble. We're not able to update our app, and our app's going to be broken until such a point as the Apple App Store decides to approve it. Sure, we can file one of these emergency reviews, but wouldn't it be nice if we just didn't have to worry about this? So there's some very different considerations when building APIs for mobile versus building APIs for the web or for your desktop browser. So we've talked a bit about the update cycles. And again, the concept I'm trying to drill home here is a web application can be deployed in a matter of hours. If we've got a mobile app within a big business with one of these BYOD plans where they force apps onto your device, then sure, we can get it out in a number of days because we're enforcing this kind of policy. But if we're talking about a public app store, we could be waiting for weeks, if not months. And in fact, I'm the prime example of this. Right now on my phone, if I look at my app store, I have 158 updates pending, which is pretty bad. So yeah, I'm a bad app developer. So another consideration, I talked earlier about the payload size. So there's a huge difference across these different networks. And so what I've got at the bottom here is a 4G, 3G, Edge, and GPRS network. And what I'm comparing here, and I'll get into the details of this in a little bit because I realize showing a graph backing it up is quite a lofty claim, so bear with me. But what I'm showing here is the difference between making many different requests from the client side, not really worrying about optimizing my network traffic, just blindly throwing 3 requests across the wire, versus sending a single request, trimming my payload, making it a little bit more relevant for mobile, just returning the data my mobile app cares about. And so on 4G, the difference is barely discernible. On 3G, again, there's a bit of a difference, but it's not huge. And keep in mind the response times here on the vertical axis. This is 50 seconds, this is 100 seconds. So these are quite big numbers. When we get to an edge network, already we're waiting almost 30 seconds to get our data back on an edge network when we're not optimizing our network requests. Whereas when we optimize our requests, when we bundle things up into one API call, we're seeing a huge improvement in performance. And on GPRS, for those of us on top of a mountain with nothing at all to go by, it's really drastic. It goes from being unusable to just about usable. So that's it for my presentation session, you'll be glad to hear. Are we ready to get our hands a little dirty? All right. So one thing I do have is a cheat sheet. So here's a little bit.ly URL with the completed files for everything we're going to be working on today. If you get stuck, please feel free to raise your hand and I'll try and help out as much as I can, depending on how we do in time. But it's also good to know that this is here. So all of the files you will need to complete the project, all of the changes you need to make, will be in this cheat sheet. And I've also written it up here on the whiteboard, since I'm going to move off this slide in a moment. Many people have discovered that my handwriting is atrocious. This reads PG for PhoneGap, PG Microservices. And it's on Bitly, everybody's favorite Libyan URL shortener. Okay. So, hopefully everybody's on this screen by now. If you're not, remember you should be receiving an email invite, which will allow you to sign into this instance with your Openshift account. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a project in this environment. So we're going to go to Projects. We're going to click New Project up here in the top left. You probably won't have any tiles in here. I've obviously been playing around with this quite a bit. And when you click New Project, you'll get a screen that looks like this. So we're going to choose this top template here, this Hello World project, just to get us started. We're going to click Choose. And then I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call mine Barcode Project, but you can call yours whatever you want. In fact, I'm going to call it Barcode Project PhoneGap Day. Then I'm going to click Create, the Create button, surprise, surprise, and we're going to wait for this to finish. And so what this will give us is it'll give us a project which contains two apps. On the left, we'll see a client-side application, and that's going to be written in Cordova. And by the way, once the bar turns green, you can click Finish. And on the left, we have this Cordova Lite application, and in the middle, we have our Node.js app. And that's where we're going to build our microservice in a moment. Is everybody with me so far? Anybody stuck? All right, excellent. So on the left, as I said, we have our Cordova Lite app. And what we're going to do is we're going to modify this application to include a Cordova plugin for scanning barcodes. We're going to scan the barcode, and we're going to send it through to this server side here in the middle and say, hey, here's this barcode. Could you do something with it and give me back some useful piece of information from out of the web? Now, the steps in the Cordova Lite app are going to be pretty quick. Many of you have done Cordova apps, I'm sure. I don't know if you'd be here today if you haven't. So we're going to gloss over this pretty quickly. And so what I've done is I clicked on that app on the left, and it's given me a screen that looks like this. And on the right, we can see what our application looks like. We can even interact with our application. So we can do things like put in our name. And it actually won't respond right now because we haven't deployed the cloud app. It'll just give us an error back. But we can interact with the app over here on the right. Change the device to be a watch or whatever. And today what we want to do is we actually want to take a look at the editor. So on the left here, you'll notice there's a whole bunch of options. And there's some pretty cool stuff here that you can feel free to check out in your own time. But today we're going to be using the editor. And here we have every developer's favorite thing, a web-based IDE, right? Who doesn't love a good web-based IDE? Yeah, I know. So one thing I will point out is you can git clone this onto your own computer and use your own IDE. You can use WebStorm, you can use Eclipse, you can use Vim, use Emacs, we don't judge. Use whatever you want. But for today, we're going to be using the built-in web editor because it's just easier. We don't need to play around with people's public keys and give people access to Git using that public key. So we're going to be making some really simple changes. So work with it for today, and just keep in mind that you can absolutely use Git or whatever tool you want. And also, remember I said earlier, you can rip this code out and put it somewhere else. I mean, we're using this tool because it's convenient. By all means, take this code and put it somewhere else once you're done. That's the whole kind of idea of this session. So we see our app over here. And like a lot of Cordova apps, we've got a www directory. So we're going to expand this and open index.html. And so we're going to make a change to the HTML. I know, right? Whoa, Cian, slow down. Has this gotten way too deep all of a sudden? So it gets a little more interesting. But all I'm going to do is make a very simple change to the HTML. And by the way, feel free to have some fun here and do whatever you want. But I'm going to just change the title tag up here, this H3, on line number 16 for me. And let me bump up this font size a little bit, by the way. Is that hard to read in the back?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see what we can do. So I can probably collapse this. Hopefully that's a little better, although we'll lose a little real estate. In fact, why don't I do this?
Like better.
Better? Excellent. So I'm going to change this. Go. I'm going to change this just to read barcode project. I'm going to zoom out again. And I'm going to change the description down here in line 23 to read, press the big blue button to scan a barcode and receive product information. Again, this is just some blurb descriptive text. Doesn't matter what you type here, you can type whatever you want. So I've just updated the paragraph tag, and I've updated the heading tag. That's all I'm going to change in this page. I'm not going to go changing much else. Once I'm finished, I'm going to click File, and then Save. And this is actually doing that Git commit for me in the background. So I've updated my index.html file. You'll notice it's finished because there's no longer a little asterisk in the tab. Sometimes when everybody saves at the same time, it'll see how it goes. Everybody okay so far? See nodding, that's good. And by the way, the changes in this file are pretty much optional. It's just for appearance. But now, let's do something a little more serious. So, we need to include a Cordova plugin to scan barcodes, right? And one of the things this platform does is it allows us to build our applications in the cloud by pressing a big build button. And that'll spit back at us an IPA file or an APK file, which we can then install on our phone. And part of that build process involves pulling in the Cordova plugin that we need. So there's a whole host of Cordova plugins included by default, but if we want, we can manually specify what plugins we want to use. Now to do this, we are going to need to use the cheat sheet, because it's a pretty lengthy file and we're just going to copy paste it. I'll explain where I've gotten it from. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the www directory so that it's highlighted. It doesn't have to be expanded, it doesn't matter, just so long as it's highlighted here in blue. I'm going to click File, New File, and then we're going to call that file in the name field config.json. So we're going to make this config.json file, click Create. It'll start re-editing this file. And its contents are actually going to come from the cheat sheet. So hopefully everybody has that cheat sheet open. If not, the URL is here, bit.ly pg microservices. So I have it here, I think. Nope, right, bit.ly/pg microservices. Okay, and so the file we're going to upload is, surprise, surprise, the config.json file. And by the way, if anybody got stuck with what I was doing in index.html, of course, you can just grab the file from here and paste it in as well. So I'm going to open this config.json file. And because I'm using a plugin to parse my JSON in Chrome, it's going to be hard to copy, so I have to do this. But I'm just going to copy the entire contents of the file. There we go. So I'm going to take this entire config.json file, and I'm going to throw it in here into the editor. I'm going to click File, Save, and that's it. So that was me including all of the default plugins, just in case I might want to use them. And at the very bottom, I've also included the barcode plugin as well. So if you scroll down to the very end of this file, you'll notice we're including PhoneGap plugins barcode scanner, because that doesn't come out of the box. So we're going to bundle this into our application as well. Is everybody with me so far? All right, I see nodding. Good. So the last thing we're going to do on the client side before we get stuck into the Node.js part and the microservices part is we're going to edit hello.js to actually call this barcode scanner. Now, if I look at the documentation for the barcode scanner, and in fact, if I look at my finished file and just cheat, grab the line of code that I need, I can call the barcode scanner by doing this. So you'll see we're not doing anything too surprising. We're grabbing a button on the page called Say Hello and binding an event to it on click. And that's happening on line 1. On line 2, we just update a little paragraph tag to say, hey, look, we're doing something on the web, be patient. On line 3, I'm going to throw in a call to this barcode scanner. So I'm just going to paste this line. And it's cordova.plugins.barcode scanner. And barcode scanner is camel case, lowercase barcode, capital case S, scanner, dot scan. And it takes a callback with a result. I'm going to close out that callback. And I'll be left with something that looks like this. So I'm calling out to the barcode scanner. I'm saying, hey, use the camera on the device, scan a barcode, and give me back whatever the barcode is, the number, I guess. In the callback of this function, I'm going to do something. I'm going to call out to this middle part, this cloud layer, over REST. So I'm just going to do a REST call from the mobile device to the cloud layer and say, here's the barcode I got. Give me your information. So to do that, I know that the number is actually stored in results.text. And so I'm just going to take the entire rest of this function from line 7, in my case, down to 20, this entire fh.cloud call, which is, by the way, just doing an AJAX call to the cloud application. And I'm going to put it inside this barcode scanner callback. We're not going to change the path. So once the barcode scanner returns, we're going to use fh.cloud. We're passing it something called path. And this is the REST path in that service that we're going to call, so /hello. We're just going to leave that the same. But we are going to change the data that we're sending. We're going to send a body. We're going to change the body that we're sending to send the barcode text. So I'm going to replace this line, this JSON object, delete all of it. And instead, the data that I send is going to be barcode results.text coming from the barcode scanner. The last thing I'm going to do is down here on line 12 in my case, where we get the results from that cloud call. We're going to append an element to the page. We're going to append both a paragraph tag with the name of the product and then an image tag with the source of the image. So I've got this here. The old here's one I prepared earlier trick. So I'm just going to put it in here. So our result is actually an array of products. We're going to get the first element. Then we're going to do document get element by ID cloud response, which is just, I think, a div on the page. Inside of that, we're going to put an image tag with its source of image URL in our response. And we're also going to set the paragraph, append this paragraph tag with the name of our product. Now, of course, we haven't built the code to actually return these two things yet, and that's what we're going to do next. But we've already set up our client-side project to do all of this. So when we come back to it, at least we can try it out and see it in action. And by the, yep.
Just so you know, I went and just copied the hello.js off of your cheat sheet.
Yep.
It does not have the sub-zero.
I know. Yeah. So if anyone's following, that's a good point. Okay, I'm going to keep that in mind, and so that we're consistent, I'm going to get rid of it. So this is an interesting point as well, because when we're integrating with APIs, we've passed it one barcode. Why would we get back multiple products? And the reason for that is the API that we're integrating with actually returns back to me an array of products, even if there's only ever going to be one, because it's this unique identifier. So it's not a great API. And so I'm always going to assume that our API returns just one thing, a product in a JSON object, and not an array. And these kind of inconsistencies can really kill us down the line if we don't think about our API properly. I'm also just appending HTML into the DOM. I'm not using a templating library. I'm not using any sort of fancy mobile framework, because really what I'm trying to do is get us stuck in with the server-side code. And it's not the greatest practice. It's not the way to build out a big, large-scale mobile application. But all we're trying to do is just illustrate a couple of simple concepts today. So I'm going to save this file. And actually, that is it for our client-side project. And we're going to move on to the cloud app. And before I do that, is anybody stuck? Is anybody having any issues? Is anything broken? Anybody got a blue screen of death or a kernel panic or anything exciting like that? Okay, good. So we've made some changes to this client-side project. Now let's jump back to that 3-column screen we saw earlier with our cloud app in the middle. Now I'm going to click on this link up at the top, which is completely truncated and looking weird because I've increased my font size so much. So let me reduce it for a second. And the link we're going to click is this, Apps, Cloud Apps, and Services, with the red underline. And this brings me back to this view. And I'm going to click the middle column this time, this Cloud Application. So we see that we have our cloud app, and we see red right now, right? Like not just Red Hat red, like red, as in something isn't right. And there's this big message that says it's stopped. So let's do something about that. And first and foremost, let's get our app running. So the first thing we're going to do in this cloud app is on the left, we're going to click on Deploy. And then we're going to click on the big Deploy Cloud App button. So this is going to reach out to Openshift and say, hey, give me a Node.js application. And make it run, make it do stuff. This is going to take a couple of minutes. So while this is happening, we can actually just navigate away from this screen. And hopefully when we come back here, we'll see everything nice and green and happy. And if we don't, we'll deal with that in a moment. And we're going to once again go, surprise, surprise, to the editor. Now the first thing I wanted to kind of draw your attention to, we're not going to make any changes in here, but I just wanted to show it. Let me bump up the font size a bit so you can see what I'm doing once again. The first thing I wanted to show you is this file application.js, and that's our main entry point into the app. Now I saw so many hands go up earlier when I asked who's used Node that I'm not going to go into this in too much detail. All I want to point out is that on line 25, we've mounted a root /hello and handed it over to a file called lib.hello.js. The other thing to point out is we're using the Express framework in here. So I'm going to jump to lib.hello.js. And that's where we're going to focus our efforts on today. Now you'll notice right now that our lib.hello.js file, which you will, by the way, want to open because we're going to make a couple of changes in here, our lib.hello.js file has 2 roots. It's got two of the same root. It's got a get and a post root. Now we're actually just going to bundle our handler up into one and be really lazy. And we're going to just program our code so that it'll work for both get and post, which is a terrible REST API design, I know. But it means we can just try it out in the browser. So we're going to handle both the get and the post case by renaming hello.get to hello.all. Neat little trick with Express applications, which binds to every HTTP verb. So we'll even handle things like delete or options or put with this handler. And today we're probably just going to do a get and a post request. Maybe even just a post request. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just delete this code that I don't need. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I'm going to get rid of the hello.post handler and all of the comments. So I'm going to delete lines 20 through 29. And these should probably line up for you as well. So we have our hello.all call. And in here we're picking off, so I'm going to get rid of this console statement on the first line as well, because we don't need it.
So where do those end up? And if I'm running, if I were to leave that in and run it, where would I see that in the interface?
Where would you see the actual REST root doing stuff?
Yeah, where would I see the console log messages?
Oh, okay. So on the left-hand side, you'll have a link called logs.
Okay.
And they just pop out there. It's like most PaaS environments. You see the logs come out in there. Yep. And they rotate out, and they get timestamped and some nice stuff as well. But yeah.
So it's more like log, not console log.
Yeah. And so we've got our all root. And right now we're picking off a query parameter called world. So in the URL, we've passed this parameter called world. Now remember earlier, we actually called this barcode. And we're sending it in the body, but we're going to handle both cases. And so we're going to call our variable barcode. And we're going to, instead of doing all this stuff, we're just going to make it a little more concise. And we're going to say rec.query.barcode type or rec.body.barcode. So we're going to default to looking for it in the query string, and if that doesn't exist, we're going to put it into the body. And again, I talked earlier about how I often do workshops in front of audiences that aren't JavaScript developers. And they see me do this. I get in a bit of trouble because they're like, what the hell is this? That's disgusting. What are you doing? Yeah, we're JavaScript people, so we can keep it in-house here. Don't tell anyone I'm using the truthy operator like that. So we've got our barcode parameter sent from the client. Let's do something with it. Well, right now I'm going to do something really boring with it. I'm just going to change this so that it returns it back to the client again. Just echoes it back. So I've changed my res.json call to send the message of the barcode. I'm going to click File, Save, just so that I don't lose my changes. And we're actually going to make some changes to another file now very quickly. So I'm going to open package.json down here at the bottom. So we saw some hands earlier saying that we were, Node developers. People had seen Node before. Actually, this exists in Cordova as well, so I'm sure people are familiar with it. But people understand the idea of package.json for dependencies, right? So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly as well. And really all we're doing is we're including two modules. Now, let me just look up the exact version numbers that we need. We're going to include a module for parsing CSV and a module for parsing SOAP. Sounds weird, right? It's a weird API. So as I said, we need a SOAP and CSV. So very aptly named, nice and easy to remember. So our CSV, and by the way, feel free to grab this from the cheat sheet, it's not too exciting. We're going to include CSV, this version, and SOAP, this version. SOAP. Okay, I'm going to save my package.json file. And so for anybody who hasn't seen this before, by the way, it's a bit like a Maven dependencies or whatnot. We're just including in CSV, a CSV parser, and a module called Node SOAP, which is able to take a WSDL and do really cool stuff and give us back something that we might actually ever want to integrate. So we've saved our package.json. We've included our two new Node modules. Let's jump back to hello.js. Let's actually make use of these two modules. So up at the very top, we're just going to do something really unsurprising. We're going to say var CSV is equal to require CSV. And we're going to say var SOAP is equal to require SOAP. So we've included both the CSV parser and the SOAP module, Node SOAP. And now we're going to make use of Node SOAP to call out to our external web service. Now I haven't talked much about the external web service that we're going to be using so far. But I did mention that it was going to be a little bit funky and it's a little strange. And really what this is a prime example of Enterprise Integrations 101. You know that client that everybody really hates to do work for because their backends are from 20 years ago and they refuse to upgrade. Nobody wants to touch it. This is exactly that example, and here's why. So we're integrating with a SOAP service. I'm going to open a thing called SOAP UI, which some of you may have had to use before, some of you may not. If you haven't, great. If you have, sorry. But it's very useful. It's a really nice way of visualizing SOAP. By the way, how many people have had to integrate with a SOAP service before? Plenty. OK. So I'm preaching to the converted here once again, right? And I hope there's no diehard fans of SOAP here, because I don't like SOAP. Like, I really don't like SOAP. But it's out there. Quite often we need to integrate with it. So we've got this search UPC service. And all I've done is I've imported the WSDL into SOAP UI just to show you what it looks like. And that is microscopic from here, so nobody can see that. But here's what the body looks like. We pass through a parameter, the UPC code, and we pass through an access token, just an API token to validate the request. We get a response back that looks like this. Our result is get product result. OK, all good so far, right? Oh, that is still quite small. Let's see if I can make that. Why is it zooming on my screen but not here?
I don't think anyone wants to see.
Oh no, no one wants to see this. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to paste this into like anything, a GitHub gist. So this is the response from our SOAP service, okay? So, all well and good. We've got our SOAP envelope, our SOAP body, our get product response. Okay, pretty sensible. Get product result. All good so far. Wait a minute. What's this? What's this? Product name, comma, image URL, comma, is this JSON? No. No, it's CSV. So somebody has built an API, a SOAP API, which in the middle of the response encodes some CSV as well, just for fun. Why would someone do that? Well, here's the thing, right? This happens all the time. Somebody thinks this is a good idea, and all of a sudden the mobile developer has to, integrate with it. And this is kind of the crux of what I'm trying to illustrate here. People really shouldn't be doing these integrations on a mobile client, on a mobile device that ships into an enterprise app store, definitely not a public app store. It's just nuts. So really the key take home here, and we're going to parse this and make it friendly and make it nice and make it something people might actually want to use. But the key take home here is, deal with this stuff somewhere where you've got a quick way to deploy, a quick way to fix it when the developer suddenly decides that, oh, I shouldn't return CSV. I should instead return in the middle of the body YAML. Right? Let's just build this somewhere, somewhere more sensible where we can actually maintain it. And that kind of throwaway idea of building an integration that may not be around for too long is really kind of key to the microservices concept. So this is just a prime example of a workaround really that we often need to make, and how to kind of better make use of a more sensible architecture to build it. So I've waffled on for long enough about why SOAP is awful, why CSV within SOAP is even more awful. Now let's take a look at the parser. So hopefully this brings a little bit of a rescue to events, because really the task that's ahead of us is not pleasant. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of node SOAP. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm putting into a variable my WSDL. So this is just the web service definition for anybody who hasn't used SOAP before. A WSDL file is like probably the only good thing about SOAP, is it gives us a really nice way of defining the web service. The schema isn't very nice, but it gives us a way of saying what a web service looks like. And so because we have this WSDL, we can paste it into our variable here and initiate our SOAP client with this WSDL. And it's going to spit back at us an error condition, maybe, if it didn't work. And then it's going to give us this SOAP client. So our SOAP client is then going to have a couple of functions attached to it. And how do we know what those functions are? Well, unfortunately, we've actually got to delve into the WSDL. The alternative, of course, is to console log it and just see what those functions attached are. And what it will do is give us a function for every operation the WSDL exposes, one of which is called getProduct. So we can do SOAP client.getProduct. And its first parameter to this function is going to be the arguments that we pass in. And the second is going to be a callback function that gets called when we see a success. So there was two parameters getting passed in. One is just UPC, and that's going to be our barcode from up on top. And the second is an access token that's just used to validate the requests. And this needs to be sent through to this web service so that they'll let us in. You're probably not going to be able to grab this access token from the, oops. Oh no, I just hit the keyboard shortcut for back in my browser and I've lost everything. All right, one quick solution to that. Here's one I prepared earlier. Let's get back to where I was. This is why we keep the cheat sheet. And now I've actually got error handling in there. All the better. So there were two parameters we're passing in. One is the UPC barcode that we take from the client. The second is the access token. And this is just a big long string to validate the request. And you know what? Since I'm such a nice guy, you can use mine. Sharing is caring. Until searchupc.com finds out and cuts off my access. But for now, let's go with it. So we've called out to our getProduct service, and we've got a result back from the SOAP service down here. And now we need to do something with this result. And so you'd think that this result coming back would be like a nice JSON object that we can literally just pull parameters off of, like the product image name, just the product name. But because it's in CSV, we can't do that. And this is why Node SOAP is a pretty cool utility. It makes it really easy to take a big bulky SOAP service and bring it down to something that's much easier to bring back to our client and parse. And everything would be well in the world at this point if it wasn't for the fact that we've got to deal with this CSV file. But thankfully, that's also really easy in Node. So we're going to set up a CSV parser, last but not least, to deal with this response. Get product result, it's called. So our result does have one property, results.getProductResult. And we saw this in the SOAP response from SOAP UI and those big HTML like angular brackets inside the XML response. And it's just converted this over really nicely into the CSV string. So at least it's done that much for us. We don't have to go screwing around with regexes or any of the other solutions I've seen in the past for integrating with SOAP services. We can do it properly. We are actually parsing the response body. And we're going to pass this getProductResult into our CSV converter that we stood up above. Nope, don't use that keyboard shortcut. I always forget what the de-indent shortcut is in our editor. There we go, that's properly indented. So we're calling csv.parse. And we're going to pass into it our results.getProductResult. This might be a tiny bit different in the cheat sheet. I've probably pulled it into a variable. We're going to pass in the getProductResult. Remember, that's our CSV string. We're going to pass in one little option, and we're going to say columns is true. And what that means is that the first row of CSV that we get back is just the titles of all of our columns that we're going to use. And so it's going to use that first column to describe all of the fields that come back in the JSON. And this comes back with two parameters, and it's a callback, an error condition, and a parse response. So we're going to just really hackily handle if our return res.status 500.json error, because everybody knows the only way to return an error is with 500, right? No? And lastly, we're going to, and by the way, I hate when people do this, like, please just put in the angular bracket, but I'm going to do it for now. So we're going to return, last but not least, res.json, and we're going to respond with parse response. And by the way, I've still got my previous res.json call in here. That could have really confused me if I didn't spot that. I'm going to delete this, and we're going to return res.json in here instead. And it's only at this point, by the way, that we're returning a response back to the client. So it's going to be spinning for a little bit. You know, we might improve this with, adding caching or something at some point. And that should be it. That should be our integration. Now I'm seeing a little red X. I'm wondering what did I do wrong. Did anyone spot a syntax error?
It's JavaScript. You're probably missing a comma.
It's JavaScript.
You're probably missing a comma.
Okay. So, but not a semicolon, right?
No.
This guy is checking.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet it's actually linting and just complaining about these inline errors. Let's try saving it and see what happens. We'll find out soon enough if I really screwed up.
I think you're actually missing. You're missing a squiggle somewhere.
I probably am.
That's my guess.
So I haven't closed out the CSV file, so that's fine. There we go. And no more red. Good. Oh, no, still red. I think we've entered what Node developers call callback hell. Has anybody heard of that term before?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've got quite a few callbacks going on, don't we?
You should have 1, 2, 3, 4 closes at the bottom.
1, 2, 3. I have 3. Where do I
You're
have
missing
3?
one.
Because I didn't close the create client call. So create client, yeah. Thank you, good sir. All right, no more red. Good. File, save. I'm kind of glad I didn't have to resort to copying from my own cheat sheet. That would be pretty bad. All right, so we've made all these changes. The last thing we want to do is test it out. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the deploy screen. And down here at the bottom, we're just going to press this big deploy cloud app button. And since it's already deployed, hopefully everybody has green up here in the top right. And it should be pretty quick. So it's just going to upload our latest changes to Openshift. And once that's done, we should be green again. Now while that's happening, I'm just going to show off a cool little piece of functionality that we probably won't get to today. But these APIs are actually documented in a thing called API Blueprint. It's a bit like Swagger for anybody who's heard of Swagger. And so I can actually go into the docs screen, and I can try out my API right here in the browser. I can specify my headers, my URL parameters, I can change the body. And by default, we're actually sending a hello world response right now, because we never updated the API docs. So while we're waiting for the deploy, let's just do that really quickly. So I'm going to open the README file. You'll see this API Blueprint formatted file. And I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to change the sample request body to read barcode. And I'm just going to grab an example barcode. I guess I still have it in SoapUI. Yes, I do. SoapUI doesn't bind the keyboard chocolate, so I've got to use my mouse. There we go. Let's save this. So I've updated the documentation just to send a different parameter through to our service. I see green here, which means my deploy succeeded. Now, does my barcode stuff work? So submit. Error, reference soap is not defined. All right. So the demo gods are angry, but this is their first appearance today. So let's see why. So our CSV is equal to require CSV. I don't know where that code went. Our soap is equal to require soap. Has anybody else, by the way, got this working? Has anybody's deploy failed? Has anybody run into any issues so far? Deploying. Done. Who would have thought that a room full of people deploying would be a bad idea?
Who could have foreseen?
Sorry for the Openshift ops team right now. They really hate me.
Ja, stimmt, das kann ich bitte noch sagen.
Preparing bills for deployment, I know that's one of the last steps.
So what's the valid barcode, or what's a barcode?
I've been using Donald Knuth's The Art of Computer Science, which I do not own a copy of, just in case I'm trying to come off as some pseudo computer science intellectual. Amazon actually lists the barcode on their books. So that's completed. Let's try it out in the Discovery console here, in the Docs section. Submit. And we see a response. So we get back product name, The Art of Computer Programming. We get the image URL. Product URL is actually blank for this. 43 bucks.
That's why you don't own a copy.
That's why I don't own a copy. There we go. Anybody who wants to donate a copy, by all means. I might learn something. Okay, so we've built this cloud service. If anybody's having difficulties, I'll gladly hang around later and help you out. The last thing we want to do is try it out on our device. And so to do this, you can all do this, by the way. You can just very quickly go build. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but if you've got an Android device, you can build this for your Android phone. You'll get an APK file and you can install it. If you've got an iOS device, right now in the free tier, that's not available. Sorry, maybe it will be at some point soon. If you want to pay us some money, you can absolutely get that. But right now, in the free option, it's Android only. And when I go to build, what this is going to do is it's going to bundle up all those JavaScript and HTML files that we edited earlier, send them off to the build server, and then give us back a native APK file. Now, we've been doing this for quite a while. This is actually one of the cool things that Henry did about 2 or 3 years ago. But there's one other company who's also been doing this for quite a while. Anyone want to volunteer as the employee sits around looking activity? Yeah, so it's actually a cool feature of what Adobe does as well. So this is a little awkward, but hey, here I am.
No, it's cool.
Yeah, it is, right? Because as far as I know, there's not a lot of other folks out there doing this, right?
Who had it first?
I think Adobe has PhoneGap build. You guys have this, and doesn't Intel XDK have their own kind of cloud service as well? Yeah.
But it's like it's quite hard because for iOS, you've actually got to deploy these guys into a rack. I mean, you need to run it on Apple hardware, and nobody stocks, Apple hardware to put in a rack. So it's a pretty cool problem to have solved. Once this is finished, it'll give me a barcode that you guys can scan on your phone using like red laser or something. And the other thing I can do is I can just show you what the app looks like when it's finished as well. So I'm doing it on my iPhone because it's really easy to project onto the screen. While I'm doing this, does anybody have anything with a barcode? Because I do not. No longer. They're really on top of keeping all
The
this.
two cans in the back of your neck.
Oh, there's the barcode.
It's him and that Mountain Dew can too. Yeah. We're gonna prove that he's not cheating, we're just using Coke cans.
Yeah, exactly. Let's bring in some variety. So, thank you.
There you go.
No, QuickTime, don't crash. There we go. All right. So here's my barcode scanner. Here's my can of Mountain Dew. Like scan barcode. By the way, how weird is it to have like a face projected up on the screen? Try. Oh no, it's like a white barcode on a silver can. Is that even gonna work?
Those are notoriously hard to scan.
Oh, it's that.
Okay, I brought your Mountain Dew.
Oh, it worked. Okay. Anybody who worked in retail right now must surely feel my pain, right? Service is unavailable. Check service is running. Let's try again. All right, so it looks like my cloud service isn't running, but you get the idea. What we would get back here is a picture of the barcode here in the app. Let's just try the Coke can and see. There we go. And again, you see the barcode. And by the way, it reads 496580. Oh, it looks like that's kind of chewy. Oh, there's the chewy. Yeah. Oh, cool, it did work. All right, so there, cool. So yeah, that's the finished project. If anybody had any problems with any of the deploy steps or anything that we covered today, please feel free to come by and ask them to help you out. I think we're probably going to be kicked out of here for the next session. But hey, thanks everybody for the time. I appreciate it.